I noticed, and I read some articles, so I don't know if this is gonna change. Again, you guys are in alpha. Um, why aren't you guys approaching this with a gambling system? Because I know that's a hot topic when it comes to esports.
Yeah. Well, I'll first say I'm not particularly motivated by it. I think
Okay.
we certainly poked around it, and we learned as much as we can. And we are a startup company. We're a business, so we sort of have a responsibility to go and explore the options that could be the biggest potential businesses for us. Um, Aside from my personal sort of lack of excitement around it, even though I could totally see how it could be huge. There's just a lot of there's a lot of reasons not to. One of them is there already is great options if you're in a regulated betting market like the UK or Australia, um, or Nevada to bet online, to go and find on Pinnacle, on the sort of traditional betting websites that now include esports markets, or to go to a esports native thing like Unicorn. There are ways to bet if you want to, and even though all the skins betting stuff has been sort of shut down, there are still people that are operating skins betting websites, and so there are
Mm-hmm.
ways to do this. And what we, even though the UI is new and different, this notion of live is new and different, we weren't bringing something sort of fundamentally new to the table by doing that. And my view of it is, if what you want to do is watch esports and bet on it, there are really great ways to do that, and those ways are all going to continue to get better. And there's a huge group of fans who love esports, and want to engage with other fans, but don't necessarily want to actually bet on it. And they want
Mm-hmm.
to compete. They want to have reputation. They want to have smack talk. But like, the primary motivation isn't like, I got $100 riding on this thing. And so we're there for those fans, and we're there to really provide a way for you to sort of more socially, casually engage around watching games. And that doesn't mean we're not going to do monetization. Like, we're certainly going to figure out a way to make this thing profitable, and basically ask our users to pay where we're delivering outsized value, or where there's an opportunity for them to sort of make a stage out of Taunt, where it's really
Mm-hmm.
something where we're providing them an outsized amount of value. And there's tons of different models to do that. I mean, there's virtual goods, there's all sorts of stuff. So we're not really worried about that. I think that'll come. I think the main thing for us right now is, can we make this thing as fun and addicting as possible, where you just wanna play this with your friends, you want to do it because it's fun, and we'll figure it out from there.
Cool. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. It sounds like you guys are focused in your vision, and you really are trying to figure out how to move towards that and kind of have a true north in what you guys are doing, and with that, not wavering and succumbing to necessarily what you think might be the most profitable way, or what you guys just don't want to do. So that's really cool to hear.
Well,
Um,
and Sam,
mhm.
I'll tell you, part of it comes from, as someone who is newer to watching League, my own experiences being like, I feel really alone right now. Like, unless I had my friends sitting next to me, like, explaining some stuff, and like, then I'd go home and I'd play some and I'd watch YouTube videos, like, I felt pretty alone. And
Hmm.
so I think for me, like, if we can find a way to make that better and make it more fun to watch, like, this is a product that I want personally. So that's a lot of the reason why we're working on it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's weird that you have League of Legends is one of the biggest games. It has so many users, and yet a lot of people, not by choice, are playing alone and experiencing League of Legends alone. And that's one of the reasons why we created the Lola podcast. Is like, uh, yeah, from me, I almost quit League because all my friends stopped playing League, and I had no one else to play with, and the game sucks when you're playing by yourself, and people are toxic and stuff like that. And then it wasn't until I found like League of Legends podcasts and joined their community, and then I started playing with like strangers and really enjoying it. And a year or two later, the Lola podcast came from that. Like, that that desire to create a community and help people find a place where we can learn together, play together, and have more fun instead of like hating all of our teammates and stuff like that. That's cool.
It
Um,
is.
yeah, let's talk about the team that you have behind you with Taunt. So you mentioned that you're newer to League of Legends.
Mm-hmm.
League of Legends is a very complicated game, so I know you can't be doing it by yourself. How's it? How's the team that you built around you, and what should we know about them and their experiences?
Yeah, honestly, so I am like orders of magnitude the worst player on our team. My if you look at the Taunt jobs site on AngelList, like every single description in the opening paragraph is must eat, sleep, and breathe esports. Like must love games,
Nice.
must have either worked in games or play a lot of games, or it's really like it's the culture and fiber of our company. And I'm quickly becoming learned in it, and I think the fact that I used to be a big console gamer and like I played a just disgusting amount of Halo 2 on the Mac back in the day when they first ported it, and there's like elements in my background that lend itself to it, but I'd say on sort of the mod, like on MOBAs and a lot of modern PC games really coming into it. But if you look around our team, our lead engineer has he's a Dota player, but logged 8,000 hours in Dota. I play against another one of our engineers like every Sunday night, and I know he's got his own sort of like Discord server that he and his buddies are playing with like probably every night. Our product designer started playing in season 2. We're working with a lot of students from the University of Washington that are actually Taunt masters, that are the ones that are sort of or Taunt casters that are issuing a lot of the challenges right now, and all of them are super involved in the University of Washington's Esports Club, Washington Gaming Association, and actually Washington State as well. So really getting kind of the power of the local esports community around us too.
That's awesome. I love that you're involving people in the community, really, really getting, expanding that reach. So one thing that I love talking about, well, love and hate, because it's such a common topic that I run into when I think it's such a simple answer, is a lot of people want to get into esports, and it's like, wow, we can do this. This is actually possible. We could like play video games for a career, or we can be part of a YouTube community, or I can make games for a living. Like all these aspirations that are really new to people, and people are like, hey, I want to get involved, but no one will hire me. Or it's like, how do I get into esports when they're looking for 3 to 5 years of experience and all that kind of stuff. So what is your kind of tip for anyone that's really interested in getting into esports or getting into the gaming industry, or even app development? What is your tip for them to get into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So in all of our jobs, we're hiring for 2 things, and I mentioned that first thing earlier. That's eat, sleep, and breathe, and esports and gaming. The second thing is excellence in your skill set, and so I think, to me, unless you're actually a pro gamer, your skill set is not gaming. Your skill set is something else, and your passion and interest is in gaming and esports. And so, I mean, we're hiring engineers, we're hiring marketers, we're hiring community leaders, we're hiring, it's like hard to actually look back. Visual designers. And so and I know this is the same at a lot of other companies in esports too. It's the passion has to be there, but like you better be awesome at what you do. And I think that that's at least our bar, and I think that you should think about your passion and your skill set in 2 different ways, because the esports industry is growing. Like there's going to be more jobs in esports than ever before, and they're not all going to be with these esports associations that consist of a team and a coach and a head analyst. Like there's it's a $1 billion industry, and it's growing every year, and it means that there's opportunities in esports no matter what you do, no matter what your skill set is, because that's all expanding. Like if you're like an energy systems engineer who works on HVAC systems, like people are building esports arenas, and like you could go work for a company that is an esports arena and put your HVAC knowledge to work. So there, to me, in the same way that people say they wanna work in entertainment. Like now there is just every way to work in entertainment. Like if you're a computer programmer, like you can go work on the graphics systems for an upcoming movie, or if you're a separation of passion from your actual skill set and sort of being great at both.
Gotcha. Cool. So another question. What I run into this a lot with people where it's like, I love esports. Um, I will just apply to every job and any job that I kind of feel qualified for. And I think it kind of comes to the issue is like they don't know what they're passionate about, but they're really desperate because they love esports. How does someone figure out what their passion or expertise is and like what should they do about that?
Yeah. I think this is. I'll abstract away from esports for this point to start at least.
Okay.
I believe that I have a little bit of contrarian advice about follow your passion. I think there are a lot of people who, I definitely had people tell me this, say, follow your passion and the good things will come out of it. And maybe, like, I think that works sometimes. I know that in my life, I get passionate about stuff when I'm good at it and I experience flow and when things are going well. So for me, like, I don't know that the reason I got into programming, I majored in computer science in college, and iOS development was necessarily because in a blank slate environment, my passion would have been iOS development. It was because I saw that as something super valuable and a way to make really cool stuff. And so I started to get good at that. And that's what drove me being continuously passionate about it, having like a positive feedback loop where that was something that I was super passionate about. So in contrast to the advice of follow your passion, everything else will come, I would say pick something that's worth getting really good at it and get really good at it. And then you often get really passionate and excited about that thing. And so I would imagine every single one of your listeners is already incredibly passionate about esports and about League of Legends. I would say pick that wedge where if you want to go work at an esports company, like what do you want your job description to be, and get really good at that job title, that job description from a skill set perspective, and apply it in the esports direction.
Gotcha.
Because you're not going to go to a company and have your job be esports, right? Your job's going to have a different title at an esports company.
Yeah, I'm the esports guy. Yep, that's my job. Yeah, that doesn't happen. Cool, awesome. So, one of the last things I want to talk about, is there anything currently in the news, whether it's esports or whether it's, app development or something that you're like passionate about that you want to kind of riff on or just like rant about or just, talk a little about?
Gosh, there's a lot of different directions I could take this. There's one thing, I was at PAX West last month, and I went to this great panel on player mental health and mental health in the esports industry, and just really, really fantastic panel. I think it's available online, and the takeaway from it for me was that mental health is a huge and under-considered issue in esports, and in many cases, a lot of players got really good because gaming was their outlet, and they would start when they're like 11 or 12 years old, and they would get really good because all they had to do in their entire lives was play, and now they're thrust onto this pro stage, and that's the only real experience that they've had their entire life. And at 23, 24, whatever, like they stop being a pro. Esports is all they know. Streaming is all they know. Playing games is all they know. And then it's really hard to integrate into, let's say they want to go and do a different profession. You could imagine if that's all you've done for the last decade, and like maybe you have a strained relationship with your parents because they thought gaming wasn't a real career. Maybe you have a distrust of, I don't know, lawyers or employers because of, some of the contract stuff that has gone wrong or something like that. Like you have a really hard time integrating into getting a a quote unquote real job, or at least something that is not actively gaming. And I think that I'd like to help in some way of establishing a better support system around that.
Interesting. Do you think the companies, like for example, Riot Games, if we're talking about League of Legends, do you think they have a responsibility to help that?
There's responsibility all over the place. I think,
Okay.
it's team organizations, it's Riot, it's third-party platforms like ours. Like it's everybody. I think, and honestly, it's players, parents. Like we're just in a really difficult early time for esports, and
Yeah.
in something that will become the fabric of everyday life and much more accepted. And I walk in plenty of circles right now where people saying, you're doing a company in what? People watch other people play video games?
Yeah.
And, I just think we're going to collectively get better at this as it becomes more mainstream. But we're definitely in an era right now where I don't think the blame necessarily is to go to any party in particular, but we can all do a little bit better at making that better. And it ties
Interesting.
into the toxicity too. Like it ties
Yeah.
into, people should just not be dicks on the internet, and we have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. There are actually people behind those avatars, or those pro players are actually, they are
Totally.
18-year-old kids. Do you remember when you were 18 and what kind of stupid shit you were doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The most important thing to always remember when you're playing games, when you're yelling at pros who aren't doing what you think they should be doing, when you're criticizing casters, like they're people too. Like everyone behind every summoner name is a person, and just always remember that.
Yeah, actually, something that's, man, I can't remember where I heard this from, but I never made the realization, because a lot of people compare what the esports pros are going through with, like, college football. Like these athletes, like they don't have a huge problem with social media and like them getting bashed, or NBA players, like they are fine. They don't get affected by everyone like name calling them and just like ripping on them on the internet, or ESPN like just talking trash about these players. But then you have these esports professionals. They didn't go through like high school or little league
Mm-hmm.
competitions, right? They were not competing most of their life. They might have just been playing League of Legends or Rocket League or Diablo, like for fun for a while, and they were good at it, and they were competing in like a maybe a ranking sense, but not
Mm-hmm.
like in a professional environment or arena. While all these collegiate traditional sports players, or like in the NBA and stuff like that, they've dealt with it their whole life. They dealt with the gradual increase of more pressure and
Mm-hmm.
visibility, while an esports athlete comes out of nowhere, goes from like 200 followers to 50,000 followers within a year, and that's perfectly realistic situation that happens, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't get acclimated to um, the visibility and pressure and hate by the internet, and the internet
Yep.
is its own own little monster.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, we don't have chat yet.
Mm-hmm.
We could have prioritized chat. That's not like technically impossible to do. Um, we're being very deliberate about the ways that we roll out for people to communicate with each other, and we're trying to be super creative about what's the best way to express yourself, and what's like super interesting ways to get a presence and a notion that another
Mm-hmm.
person is gloating or taunting or whatever they're doing,
Yeah.
without necessarily opening ourselves up to be a platform for abuse.
Gotcha. That's cool. That's cool. Okay. Is there anything that we missed talking about Taunt and just this podcast? I
I
think we
don't think
covered
so.
the
Yeah, I
big bullet
think
points.
if you guys are listening to this and you're interested, tauntnow.gg, come join the alpha.
Mm-hmm.
We'd love to have you. If you've played, feedback at tauntnow.gg. Would love to hear from you, especially if you want to jump in and correct me on anything that I said in conversation. Um, would love to have you join, especially if you hear this by the end of Worlds. I think during finals is going to be pretty sick. And then also, if you're a streamer out there, we'd love to talk, because I think we're gonna start picking select groups of streamers soon to start prototyping with, rather than just sort of waiting till January. We want to see how the experience is within streamer communities, rather than just on competitive LCS matches.
Cool. Yeah, and all that information, like including your Discord link, will be in the episode description or the YouTube description, wherever you guys are listening to this or watching this. Besides that, yeah, don't forget, I will probably do a few more of these, because even though the time is inconvenient, being in Discord and doing with the community was actually a huge blast. Again, I'm saying that not because Ben is here, or not because we're being sponsored. We're not being sponsored or anything. It's from me. I enjoyed our time. The guys that were a part of it really enjoyed their time being involved in participating with Taunt. Yeah, I think that's actually, with the closing remarks. A reminder: why should people be using Taunt when they watch Worlds or the LCS next split?
We make watching more fun with friends or with strangers.
Awesome. Okay, so with that, Ben, thank you again for being here. Oh, where can people find you if they want to contact you?
Oh, yeah. At Gilbert, twitter.com/Gilbert.
Wow, that's a nice Twitter handle.
I'm old.
There you go. Cool. All right, with that, again, Ben, thanks for being here. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and also being personally invited to try out Taunt. It's really been fun.
Thanks.
All right. With that, that is it for this episode. We will see you guys next week.